I was one of those people who bought the Pixel 7 on day one and used it throughout a majority of the year. It was my first official Pixel device after years of using OnePlus, Essential, Motorola, and man, even the iPhone 12 Pro. I switched to the Pixel 7 and I ended up loving it. I loved the carefully crafted experience, I loved the camera, and while it didn't have every flagship spec I was hoping for, the phone was a great value at the time. Now we have the newly launched Pixel 8 series with a $100 price increase, a ton of AI features and camera improvements, which leave me wondering if I would have still made that same choice today. Well, I still have my Pixel 7, and I think the best way to decide that is by going over the biggest differences you would notice if you ended up upgrading to the Pixel 8. And the first change you can immediately notice is the size difference. The Pixel 8 now has a smaller screen size at 6.2 inches compared to 6.3 and rounded corners that replace the more boxy shape of last year. On paper, this shouldn't really be a big deal, but in the hand, the Pixel 8 feels like a more compact, super comfortable device that feels a lot smaller than it actually is. If you look at the smartphone landscape as a whole, the Pixel 8 is actually almost identical to the dimensions of the baseline iPhone or Galaxy line, and this push for a smaller, more comfier design makes me think that they're trying to appeal to a wider audience, which I'm totally here for. When it comes to the design as a whole, we have the return of that iconic camera bar visor in all its glory. I do notice it extrudes outward a touch more than it does on the Pixel 7, probably due to the upgraded camera sensors. So that, combined with the slightly smaller footprint, makes it more of an anchor to rest your finger against, which is nice. The rest of the device is built with the same satin finish aluminum frame and glossy Gorilla Glass Victus, so there's no real upgrade there. In fact, this device is still super slippery, if not more so than the 7 is. Throughout my 1 week with the device, I've accrued so many nicks on the metal due to it sliding off surfaces left and right. Obviously, I don't have to say you should have a case on this, but for those that need to hear it, get a case or else your phone's gonna look very rough very quickly. Moving on, it's pretty easy to say the screen is another big upgrade that came to the 8 series. Funny enough, I already thought last year's Pixel 7's display was a joy to watch content on, and with the Pixel 8, it's of course even better. While we do have the same 2400 by 1080p resolution, the Pixel 8 gets HDR support, a huge spec bump to 120Hz, and a big increase in brightness from 1400 to 2000 nits. Of course, these changes affect every facet of the experience, as the display is something you literally interact with 24/7, so logically, it was one of the most worthwhile upgrades. Outdoor visibility is significantly better than it was before. Being able to run games or fly through the operating system at 120 frames is so satisfying and makes the experience feel way more fluid. Probably the only thing you should know is, out of the box, Google sets the Pixel 8 to 60Hz by default. So hop into the settings, turn on smooth display, and now you can use the full 120Hz capability. If you haven't done this already, do it now, because it's a basic feature that all smartphones should have, and you should take advantage of it now that the Pixel 8 finally supports it. When it comes to software, Google's making some pretty big commitments starting with the Pixel 8 series. They're continuing their work on their Pixel experience by adding AI features to every aspect of the OS, from Google Assistant summaries to Magic Editor to audio eraser and even AI-generated wallpapers built right in. For now, it's unclear which of these additions will be making its way to the Pixel 7 and below, so in the meantime, keep an eye out on the 9to5 Google website for when that news does become available. On the other hand, both devices are running Android 14. Thankfully, there's no feature disparity between the two, and both get the big features like lock screen customization, lock screen shortcuts, Material U color tweaks, and the performance improvements. All these features combined does give us the cleanest, most capable version of Android we've had in a long time, so if you don't really need the AI features, you still get all the important benefits on the normal Pixel 7. What you won't get, however, is the newly implemented update timeline starting with the Pixel 8 series that provides 7 years of OS, security, and feature drop updates, whereas the 7 will only get 2 more additional major OS updates and 4 more years of security. Moving on, we can talk about camera differences real quick, as I'm sure you've heard all about them by now. Simply put, the biggest differences come down to software and one singular upgraded camera sensor. The main 50 megapixel lens got a lower aperture on the 8 series, so now it can shoot at f1.7 compared to f1.9. It's a minor spec change at most that will mainly show its benefits in low light conditions, so if that's important to you, it's definitely worth considering. During daytime hours, however, you can expect basically the same exact performance as last last year, with maybe some shadows being the tiniest bit brighter. Otherwise, you aren't really missing out on much on the hardware side of things. The most impactful changes are all software based, so things like Magic Editor, Best Take, and the excellent macro mode are the selling points here. In theory, they should be coming to previous models eventually, we just don't know when, so if you're on the fence about upgrading, keep that in mind. But really, you're paying for temporary exclusive features and the improved lens for low light. And finally, the last big changes with the Pixel line we need to talk about are in regards to the upgraded Tensor G3 chip. For the past few weeks, I've been using both the normal 8 and 8 Pro side by side, and there's a pattern that I'm starting to notice here. Playing Call of Duty Mobile on max brightness and 120 FPS, for example, I find performance and temperatures to be totally fine. Same with social media, camera usage, web browsing, video watching, etc. With those, I haven't really seen any kind of overheating, performance is smooth, normal tasks run fine. Personally, I didn't have any issues with my time on the Tensor G3 chip. With that said, there have been times where the device has gotten warm when actively using Google Maps navigation, fast charging, or downloading a ton of apps. I did get a notification that the device was getting too hot to use while using hotspot in the direct sunlight while inside a vehicle. In my eyes, this level of heat is normal with any smartphone doing these tasks besides the hotspot warning. So do with that information what you will, but to me, in my past 2 weeks, there hasn't been any crazy, unexpected circumstances where this phone has overheated. And now that we got all the big changes out of the way, I wanted to go over how the Pixel 8 is better than the Pixel 7 with the more minor aspects, starting with battery life. The Pixel 8's battery size was bumped up to 4575 milliamps over 4355 of last year. The new Tensor G3 chip is supposedly more efficient, and the Android 14 update is said to have battery drain improvements. Obviously, the end result still depends on your usage, but for my usual routine of YouTube, social media, camera testing, and GPS tracking for workouts, I can get through the day with about 30% left to spare. With my Pixel 7, doing the same routine, I could reasonably expect less than 20%, so to me, this is an objective win. Paired with the new 27-watt fast charging, you can get a 50% charge in 30 minutes, which to me is the most useful addition so far. Sometimes I am so busy I forget to charge my device, so to be able to throw it on the charger for a little bit while I do some chores, just to come back with enough battery to get through the day is incredibly helpful. Unfortunately, Google doesn't include a compatible charger in the box, so that's something that you're going to have to get separately. Moving on, the speakers, while not necessarily louder, do seem more rich compared to the Pixel 7. The vibration motor on the 8 is a bit more punchy this year that allows for more satisfying feedback when navigating the OS. As for biometrics, I find this still to be the weakest aspect of the Pixel series. We have the same optical fingerprint scanners last year, and even though Google advertises upgraded display hardware as well as changes to the algorithm, I find it to be maybe 10% faster, and that's being generous. Same story with Face Unlock. It works fine in ideal conditions, but it is barely usable in dark environments. Personally, I would really like Google to match the industry standard when it comes to biometrics. I mean, Face Unlock on my 3-year-old iPhone 12 Pro works in complete darkness. My Z Flip 5 works in complete darkness, and even the $300 OnePlus Nord N30 works in complete darkness. The only standout upgrade I should mention is the ability to use Face Unlock for app sign-ins and making payments. That's useful, don't get me wrong, and a good benefit to have. At the same time, it's just tiring to see the same reoccurring issues with the biometrics several generations later. It's getting better, but not there yet. At the end of the day, the Pixel 8 is a simple refinement of the lineup that has minor touch-ups to almost every aspect of the experience. To answer the question on if you should upgrade, I think it really comes down to those 7 years of updates, immediate access to the wealth of new AI features, and the pushes towards efficiency with Android 14 paired with the Tensor G3 chip. So if those things are important to you, I would consider upgrading, but if you don't mind waiting for these software updates or don't really care about the AI features, then the normal 7 series is still a fantastic device and you're not really missing out on much. With that said, let me know what you think about how Google did with the Pixel 8 series as a whole. Is there anything missing that you would have liked to see? If you have a previous generation Pixel, does the 8 series interest you? Leave a comment and let me know, but in the meantime guys, I'm getting out of here. This has been Jordan Floyd with 9to5 Google. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.